What's up, Courtney Lacy here. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to do my 25-minute face. People have been asking me for years, how do I do my makeup? I am no professional. I just have really good experience with my own face. I know what products work well for me and what to do to get a certain look that I like. And so I start off with a moisturizer. You should always start off with a moisturizer. Very good to have one with SPF in it for your sun protection. My moisturizer is Mattifying because I have oily skin. And this is by Urban Skin RX, which is a product line that I use for my skin regimen. This is my primer also. Product details are in the description below. So I like to get it real good up under my eyes especially and rub it in real good so that you don't get those creases, but you really need something for your makeup to stick to. Next, I'm doing my eyebrows. I usually use a pencil that has a brush at the end. I brush my hair upwards and I start off by drawing the bottom line of one of my eyebrows. And then I go in and draw the bottom line of the other eyebrow to try to get the bottom lines pretty similar. And that will ensure that you wind up having eyebrows that have the same shape to them. Nothing's worse than having two different eyebrows. But I went back into the first eyebrow to try to get it a little more defined. So the next step, as you can see, is to then draw a line on the top of each of my eyebrows to make sure, once again, that they have a very similar shape. It looks a little crazy at first, but you got to trust the process. I do light strokes going in the same direction of the hair because I want the pencil to look more like strokes and not like I just colored my eyebrows in. And again, light strokes, I don't like for it to be really heavy or too bold because that can look crazy. But I'm shading them both in. Now, one of my favorite pencils to use is EBIN, and I think I'm going to pull that out a little bit later. But it's a really nice pencil, and I do plan on actually starting to go back to more of an eyebrow pomade or pomade. I don't really know how you say it, but I really like Anastasia Beverly Hills, and I intend on doing a shop with me soon while I go and get some. As you can see, I pulled that brush back out. I brushed back over the eyebrows. I like to check for any gaps where I did not shade it in properly. And I go back through and I take care of any gaps where I feel like it could have been done a little bit better. Again, this is some random pencil that I'm using and it's not the best pencil. So I'm not really going to talk about what pencil it is. I don't even know what it is. I am aware that a lot of my products are not showing up in the camera, and so there will be a list of all of the products in the description underneath the video. So here's where I'm pulling out my EBIN pencil. It's a lot better than the original pencil that I was using, but I think it provides a lot more bolder definition that I'm looking for to fill in some of the areas. And my eyebrows are not the exact shape that they're going to turn out to be. Again, I go overboard sometimes with going outside of my natural shape of my eyebrows, but here is where I'm going to bring my eyebrows back and give them the exact shape that I want, which is going to be less than what you see currently. So this is a LA Girl concealer. It's a very popular item. You see it in a lot of other videos. I like the tip of it because you can just use it to draw in what you need to draw in precisely. So I go under the eyebrow first with the applicator and I clean up anywhere where I drew in more than I would have liked, and it's going to give the perfect shape to the eyebrow. You can see it already. And I also use a little bit more beyond that because you can use this concealer as a eyeshadow primer. So I do the same thing on the other side. You want to be very careful with this applicator. If you squeeze it too much, you can squeeze out too much product and you're going to end up messing up your eyebrows because that too much product has to go somewhere. And when you go to start rubbing it in or patting it in, it's going to go everywhere and mess up all of your efforts. So again, on the second eyebrow, I went through and I cleaned it up to give it the perfect line at the bottom. You can go up as high as you want to go to give it an arch that you weren't able to naturally draw in with the pencil. Now you can fix that with this. So this is where you get the perfect eyebrows. You don't even have to have completely clean eyebrows, as far as the hair concealer will cover all of that up. So your eyebrows do not always have to be perfectly clean. This concealer changes lives when it comes to eyebrows. So I go in the middle and I clean that up, and then I'm going to go over the top of both of the eyebrows. I want to re-emphasize that you want to be very conscious and careful and get used to how much of this product you are squeezing out, because again, if you squeeze out too much when you're right up on that eyebrow, there's nowhere to rub that in but the eyebrow, and you're going to mess up all of your efforts. And as you can see, I shade in a lot higher than my eyebrow as well, because I'm using this concealer as a little bit of a highlighter as well, and it's easier to blend it in when you go beyond your eyebrow and further up on your skin, if you know what I mean, instead of blending it and getting it on your eyebrows. So I also go in with this concealer because that's exactly what it is, and use it what it's really used for, which is to cover up any dark spots. During the pandemic, I was breaking out more than usual. I've never really suffered from acne or breakouts, but because of the mask, I started to. So I got a few light spots that are fading naturally, and by some of the products that I'm using with Urban Skin RX as well. And one day I'll do a video for my skin regimen. I like to trace around my mouth. Some people are kind of dark around their mouths. I am in some areas, and I like to use it around my lips as well, because it can also make your lipstick pop. You use it under your eyes if you feel a little dark under your eyes. I actually don't use it under my eyes a whole lot. But then I'm going to take my double sponge and pat all of this in. And this is not just patting it and pressing it in. It's like a pat and push. You're kind of pressing it in and like pushing it to the side at the same time. It's kind of hard to explain, but if you're familiar with a double sponge, then you pretty much know how it works. So I'm going to pat it in between my eyebrows, and don't mess with my eyebrows. Don't get it on my eyebrows. I'm going to pat all around my eyebrows as well, blending this in with the double sponge. Okay. If you get your makeup professionally done, you'll see exactly how much concealer they actually use around your eyebrows and your eyes. And it covers quite a bit of a portion of your face. So I've just kind of learned to do the same thing for like highlighting and concealing purposes, and for definition purposes. Right now, I'm going in carefully to make sure I don't interfere with the shape that I so perfectly created with the concealer. On my eyelids, I'm squeezing the double sponge. I should probably use the little tiny double sponges for this, and I do have a few, but I always forget I have them. So you want to very carefully do this here. You don't want to get it all over your lashes, and you don't want to get it under your eyebrows. But you do want to fully blend this in. Okay, now again, this is not over my entire face. I don't like to put it over my entire face. It's not necessary. That's what foundation is for. But I do have oily skin in my T-zone, and especially around my nose. So I try to prevent putting it on my nose. I'm going back through, combing my eyebrows once more. Now that I have perfectly shaped them, I like to see where they're at. And I just like to go back through them one more time. Now I'm taking that brush, and I use the brush to give me that ombre effect. If you're going to do your eyebrows, the ombre effect is essential. You cannot have or be left with that defined line in the center. I mean, it's your preference, but it looks a lot more natural and appealing to your face if you give that ombre effect in the center. And then I'm going back through with my double sponge because I don't want my eyebrows to be so close together. So I'm going back through and I'm patting the edges where I just brushed it and gave it that ombre effect. I'm patting it with the leftover on the sponge to give it more of that ombre effect. And I'm going back in one more time to make sure that my line is as defined as I want it to be. Now that I've worked around it with that double sponge, and I may have hit it a time or two and took away from the definition that I had created. I prefer a thicker eyebrow, kind of like up and down wise. I prefer a thicker eyebrow, whereas back in the day I preferred a thinner eyebrow, and now I think that just looks crazy. So it's funny how times change. All right, so now my next step is to go in with my foundation. I prefer to use a double sponge rather than a brush because it takes less product to get the job done and it makes the bottle last longer. My foundation is actually by Revlon. It is a natural finish, 24 hours, color stay. And it's for normal to dry skin. I do not have normal to dry skin. I have oily skin. Normally I get the matte one. And I have found that when I use every product matte, my face turns out looking really dull. So I actually picked up this normal to dry skin one by accident. And I was so nervous about it, thinking that it was going to make my makeup oily at the end of the day or a couple hours after applying, and it absolutely did not. And I actually love the finished product because it gives me that balance so that my skin just doesn't look so matte, like too matte and like dry. So I like the normal to dry skin one. I think the key to having oily skin and not making it oily while you have on makeup, what I have learned through a lot of trial and error, a lot of really expensive products, is that if your primer is good and your setting powder and setting spray is good, like put money into those more than anything else, everything else is going to fall in place, and you're going to keep a look to where your skin doesn't get oily. The oil does not take over your makeup. So I'm using the same double sponge that I was using to blend in my concealer earlier to blend in my foundation. I like to go all up in my hairline because you don't want to suddenly see your scalp that is a slightly different color or such an apparent different color than the makeup on your face. So it's all about blending. I'm going to take that double sponge and touch up on my eyelids as well to get that concealer out of the creases, because when I get ready to do eyeshadow, if there's creases, there's creases. You don't want to have creases. That's why you'll continue to see me go under my eyes as well. All right, so I think that's a pretty good blend. So I'm going to move on to a really important part, and that is to set your foundation. You must set your foundation, or you can really just wipe it off your face at any time of the day with just your fingers, and you'll have it all over everything. So this is the setting powder. I use 2 different shades. This one is by Laura Mercier. This is the one that I use for highlight. The second one you'll see me use is for contour. So I also use her sponge when I want to do a little bit heavier application of it. And today I feel like doing a little bit heavier application up under my eyes to ensure that I don't get those creases. So I'm setting the powder there. Now you're going to see me do a heavy layer of it in the creases of my nose, because this is where I get the most oily, and I want to make sure that I don't get no oil buildup at this time that I am wearing this set of makeup. I'm going to take this brush and wisp this away. I'm not going to bake it. For those of you who don't know what baking is, it's when you go ahead and put your highlighting powder in all the places where it needs to go on your face, and you let it sit there like that for a few minutes, and then you wisp it away, and it puts a heavier layer of it where it's a lot more apparent. This color is a little bit light for me, even though it's my regular color that I use, but I don't like to go too heavy. It starts to look awkward when you take pictures and stuff. So I'm going to use the brush to wisp in the rest of the setting powder. This is, again, Laura Mercier Translucent Powder, and the color is Translucent Honey. So I set it in all the areas of my face that you want to highlight. You want to highlight under your eyes. You want to highlight your cheekbones. You want to highlight around your nose, above your mouth, your chin, your jawline, and your forehead, and around your eyebrows. Because every bit of your face has to have some kind of setting powder on it so that that foundation does not move. But also it helps provide dimension to your face when this is all said and done. So we're moving into the second step of setting powders, and this time this one's going to be used to contour. This is an over-the-counter brand called Black Opal. I love it. It is True Color Soft Velvet Finishing Powder, and the color is 700 Deep. I use a different type of brush to apply this a little heavier and to kind of sculpt my face with the contour. So here's where I go in the middle of my cheek. Some people do the suck in pout just to kind of see where that falls at. I kind of know where mine falls at already to contour my cheeks. And then I also go around the edges of my forehead because this puts the color back in your face. I also use it to contour my nose with the same brush. Some people like to use a thinner brush. I'm pretty good with this brush, but you will see later that I go back in with a skinnier brush. But not only does this contour my cheeks, but it also, again, puts the color back in your face after you've given yourself that washed out look by applying that lighter color setting powder earlier. So this is what puts the color back in your face and gives your face that definition and that contour and that dimension that you're looking for. I keep going until I feel like it has a good blend. A good blend to me is where you can't really tell where this powder starts or stops. You shouldn't really see any heavy lines or anything like that when the lighting hits it from certain angles. So I just keep going, and then I pull up my other brush, and I start going back over areas to give it the perfect blend. You might see me keep alternating between two different brushes, the light and the dark, until I feel like I have that perfect blend. So now I'm gonna pick up my MAC Studio Fix NW58. I'm gonna use the same brush because I'm done with that lighter or that medium brown color. This is a darker brown. I am using this to define my jawline. Okay, so you're gonna see my jawline pop a little bit more because I'm going to help shape it a little bit more. And then I'm going to shade it into my neck area to give it a good blend. You don't want no heavy lines down there either because that's just gonna look crazy. But you can immediately see how my jawline pops all of a sudden, or is more defined now that I am taking this step. It's a big difference already. You can skip this step if you already have a defined jawline. All right. Now, if you're afraid that up close and personal it's going to look like too much of a defined line, you can run over that line a little bit, not too much, but get rid of that defined line. I'm going to take what's left on the brush and gently wisp it over the very center of the contour that I already used to really suck the cheeks in a little bit more. I did not add more to the brush. This is a dark brown color. It can look really crazy if it doesn't have the perfect blend. This is where I'm taking the skinnier brush and going in a little bit more on my nose with that same setting powder by Black Opal that I used a few minutes ago, but I'm just making sure that it's defined a little bit more and it has a little bit of a better blend. And I'm going up into my eyelid eyebrow line to really polish up the contour and make it go all the way up. All right, so now I'm pulling out my Morphe palette. The Morphe palette does not give you much information on which palette this is so that you can get the same colors that I'm using, but there is a sticker on the back that says 35W, so I think that is the palette that is being used, and I have specific colors that I use a lot. You can see they're starting to run out on the palette. So you'll notice that I'm leaning my head to the side while I'm doing my eyeshadow because I've already done the rest of my face. I do not want the powder to fall on my face, and I don't want it to fall on my eyelashes very much. All right, so I used, you know, a lighter color for the majority of my lid. I'm using a darker kind of plum color to give it a little bit of a smoky look. And you'll see that I'm blending it in the corner, creating a triangular shape, starting at the bottom, creating that point for the most part, and then taking it slightly over, halfway over my lid, and that's where you start blending. All right, so now I'm using like a medium brown color. Again, the palette does not give you the names, but this is where you blend all of those colors together. It's just like a medium brown color that I'm going to use for the inside, the top, and going all the way over to the end of the brow line to perfectly blend these colors together. Also, I want to mention here that you can actually do your eyeshadow long before you put your foundation on. It's really your preference if you want to do it first for less mess. Now, I like to use blush because I like to put color back in my face. So this is by Milani, another drugstore brand. This is Cheek Kiss. The color is 130 Blushing Berry. Again, all the items will be in the description. You'll see that I'm using a flat brush to apply my blush. Alright, so I put it at the very apple of my cheeks, and I also blend it over the top to kind of help blend in where I did my highlight and my contour. And to be honest, you should not come that close to your mouth with your contour or your blush like I did. Now I'm going to highlight my nose. This works well with the contour that was done. I use like a shimmering highlight by E.L.F, which is another drugstore brand. This is a baked highlighter in Apricot Glow. I like to apply it with my fingers. I don't like to go too heavy with shimmer highlights because to me, I would like to consider this a natural beat that I'm doing on my face. And sometimes when you go too heavy on the shimmer highlight, it can look kind of crazy. Yes, I used the rest of the brown that was left on the eyeshadow brush to blend a line to separate the top and the bottom of the shimmer on my nose to create a certain effect. I took another highlighter here that I have from MAC. The description will be below to further highlight my cheekbones. So I don't use a shimmer highlight on my cheekbones. Maybe it's because I haven't found the right one for my complexion or haven't quite learned how to blend it yet. But if you have a good suggestion for one, put it in the comments below. Here, I'm just going back in, trying to get the perfect blend between my blush and my highlight. Now, this is one of the most important parts. You have got to set your makeup with a quality setting spray. My favorite one yet is by Benefit, and it's called Pore-fessional Super Setter. It's great for oily skin, and it makes your makeup last for a while. I do not recommend anyone to spray as much as I did because you can make it run down your face and ruin your makeup job. It's best to do a light layer, wait for it to dry, and do like 2 or 3 layers total. Now I'm doing my lipstick. Most of the time I don't use lip liner. I go in and I define my lip with my applicator of my lipstick. So the first lipstick you'll see me using here is RK by Kiss Forever Matte. The color is called Stranger, and I'm using it to line the top and bottom of my lip. I'm going to create a little bit of an ombre color. I like to be very precise and create an even fuller lip, so sometimes I may go a little bit on top of or outside the true lining of my lip. That's the name of the game today if you want a fuller look to your lips. But I'm also going to partly shade in my lips with this color as well. Not all the way, but a pretty decent amount, as you can see. So I like regular lipsticks too, but I tend to lean more towards matte lipsticks. I like these 2 brands that I'm using in particular because they're very rich in color, and if you kiss your man, it ain't gonna come off on them. And I take a lot of time out with my lips because I try to get them as perfect as they can be. Alright, so the last color on my lips is by EBIN, New York. It's Nude Lip Lace, 24-hour Flawless, and the color is Strawberry Icing. I don't really like nude colors on me by themselves without some kind of ombre look or a liner. So this is the look that I have put together for myself that I really like. And I'm going to mess with it a little bit more until I get what I feel is the perfect blend. So you'll see that I'm messing with both colors back and forth until I get that perfect blend. And that's pretty much the last step. All right, so now I'm just gonna lay my edges. And ladies, you need to lay your edges. No one should be coming out of the house with their edges curled up from day to day, looking like you're 5 years old. Just lay your edges. I'm not saying you have to create baby hairs or lay baby hairs, but just lay the edges, please. It gives you a polished look and bring it all together. Otherwise, it don't look like you're doing anything at all. And there you go. Face is popping. A nice natural beat. You just have to know what colors work for your complexion. Everybody's colors do not work for everybody's complexion. You got to find out the perfect mix that works for you, and you can get a face just as good as this one. It takes time and experience, repetition. Thanks for joining me. You guys stay tuned for more videos, and if you want to see more like this, let me know. See you next time.